What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through a 13-game slate in the association. Another giant slate. We'll see if we can get it done in under an hour. Mike, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Just going to tweet out here, but yeah, crazy day. It's going to be a wild one. A lot of injuries, a lot of new lineups, a lot of rookies we're going to talk about today. So it should be fun. But yeah, we got to do this under an hour. We got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. All right. Let's start with Atlanta and Detroit. Atlanta injury report. Unfortunately, fairly straightforward. There's just a lot of out tags. No Bogdanovich, no DeAndre Hunter, no Kobe Buffkin, no Vic Krejci, no Seth Lundy, no Cody Zeller, no Dominic Barlow. So we have DeAndre Hunter went from questionable to out again. So we're not seeing DeAndre Hunter, unfortunately. What are your expectations for Atlanta tonight?
Yeah, we had the Zachary Richeche breakout game on Wednesday. Scores 33 points, looked awesome. Great open looks. Scored, I think it was 22 in the first half. Was absolutely cooking here. So yeah, he's. I think he's got the job the rest of the way. I'm pretty confident in that with Hunter's knee just never being right. So yeah, rotation should be pretty straightforward. Keaton Wallace has kind of earned some second unit minutes, and then Dyson Daniels played a lot. So that was kind of an interesting wrinkle there. So we kind of upped his minutes a little bit. And then Capella, after it looked like he was, possibly going to get cut down a little bit, he's kind of run pretty strong here. Matchup kind of helped against a little bit of a bigger front court in Cat. But yeah, it's going to be pretty close, but not great take for the man versus machine with although, maybe Capella does eventually go away. But yeah, pretty straightforward rotation here.
Yep. All right. Detroit side of things, Jalen Duren doubtful with that left ankle sprain that he suffered in the first quarter of last game against Charlotte. Cole Swider here, questionable as a G Leaguer on the two-way, still without Asar Thompson and Bobby Clintman and other G Leaguers. What are your expectations in the absence of Jalen Duren tonight?
Yeah, it should almost certainly be a beef stew, a.k.a. Isaiah Stewart getting the starting spot here. Comments from JP Bickerstaff, weeks ago saying they were trying to find him more minutes, and hey, guess what? Now they've got a golden opportunity to do so. So, we have 30 minutes, and I think he could beat that by a lot. We took it over on him. I feel like if things go right and he avoids fouls, I could touch, mid 30s, and he could have a pretty good per minute output here. We know the coaching staff should be pretty good. Curious to see how he affects in a new defensive scheme. We'll talk more about that when we have more time. But yeah, so we know he's going to start. Paul Reed, who had a lot of preseason buzz, will be in there behind. We did see some small ball wrinkles when they were getting blown out earlier this season, so we put a little bit of that in there. And then yeah, it should be a little bit more tight minutes here for most of the guys. But yeah, it's going to be pretty big beef stew heavy with Jalen Duren. It is good sign he's doubtful. Maybe he's only going to miss a game, and it didn't look bad. He tried to play through it at first, so hopefully just 1 or 2 games for Jalen Duren.
Yep. All right, let's go to Indiana and Charlotte. On the Indiana side, TJ McConnell is questionable with that illness tag, not designated as non-COVID, just NA illness. And then Andrew Nembhard is probable with that left knee soreness, still without Aaron Nesmith. And of course, the centers who have been lost for the season, Isaiah Jackson and James Weissman. So McConnell questionable, Nembhard probable. We saw last game with Nembhard back. It was Matherin and Nembhard still in that starting lineup. Ben Shepherd relegated to the bench and a much, much more modest role as Jarris Walker played well and effectively here. What are your expectations for what we see? If McConnell's able to go, I know illness tags are difficult to predict, but if he's not able to go, who would benefit in those scenarios?
Yeah, we would certainly see an Andrew Nembhard stagger to fill in the second unit. And then, you're taking away the Nembhard, kind of 2 minutes a little bit. So you're going to get a little bit more Ben Shepherd, a little bit more Jarris Walker, who we'll talk about in a second. And then Ben Matherin's minutes would kind of really benefit coming off. He's playing really well this year, getting to the line 14 times. Really, really impressive. That's been something he's talked about, and he's shown up. We've had some pretty good free throw games out of him. So yeah, the other note here, as you mentioned, Jarris Walker played great, had 17 points after the game where Colorado says he's in the top 5 to 10% for court vision. So that could add to some, just seeing the game on both ends. Pretty low key, good passer here too. So we didn't give that too much credit. We were trying to, because he was, almost basically out of the rotation early this year. But Jarris Walker definitely coming on strong, cutting Obi Toppin a little bit. We saw Obi, I think, play 24 minutes 2 games ago. And then got cut down because Jarris was so cooking. So, yeah, Ben Shepherd was, done before and then passed him. And then now it looks like Jarris Walker's got the upper hand with some injuries there. But, yeah, and then also to note, the Halliburton role is back. The last 2 games with Nembhard in there. The the drives are up, the potential assists are up, all that good stuff is back up. Is that because Nembhard may not be 100% yet? I think that's fair to say. And then, Miles Turner has been playing awesome this year, and Siakam's minutes been pretty strong this year too.
Yep. Charlotte side of that game, they're going to be without Miles Bridges, right knee hyperextension. That's going to be for a few weeks. He's been one of the more durable players in the NBA when he's been on a team and not serving suspensions. Brandon Miller is probable. Nick Richards out. Grant Williams probable. Mark Williams still out here. What are your notes on the likely starter in the absence of Miles Bridges, and how do they fill all that usage, right? Because Miles Bridges has generally been kind of the second lead usage guy after LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, this is going to be so there's a couple ways this could go. You're already thin at center. We know they don't have Nick. They don't have Mark Williams. So they could just start Grant at the 4, which they've done before. I don't know. I like to go the fun way. So I think Tajay Saloon is going to get the start. We did see him start kind of in a, almost like a 3-4 spot in the preseason, and he's been kind of subbing in behind. So I think they want to play him. Obviously, this team's not very good. There was a comment from Charles Lee saying they wanted him to be the eye of the tiger and shoot the ball a bunch, on top of the fact that they are top 3 in 3-point frequency. So I think that Saloon, considering Saloon can shoot so much and he has size, I think that's a lot of what this offense needs. So I'm kind of leaning he starts this game for something that could be pretty fun play to watch in the preseason. And then they'll play a little bit smaller. Cody Martin could play a little bit more. They could play 3 guard lineups as well. Tougher-ish to get away. I guess they can get away with it a pretty good bit. But still expecting Taj Gibson to start. We'll see if Brandon Miller's minutes could come up a little bit. They've been held in check coming off the glute strain there. But yeah, I think Saloon's going to get his first NBA start here today. But it could also be, like I said, I think it's between him and Grant. I don't think they're going to go small enough where they start Cody. They might. But that's kind of my read on the situation. It's just it's Grant or Saloon.
Yeah, I kind of lean in with you here with Saloon, because I just think it makes sense to play the younger player with the more experienced players, just generally, try to make it easier on the player by just being like, hey, you don't have to initiate or create a bunch of stuff here. Just kind of get to your spot and wait for the ball to come to you and find you, as opposed to in the second unit where, there's just not as much creation in that second unit. So you might need a little bit more from him and ask him to do more. And I think that's a better spot to ask Grant Williams to kind of cover that. So will be interesting to see, but I'm kind of with you. I think that's kind of the direction that they go. My question is do you think without Bridges, do you think this just means we're seeing LaMelo take 30 shots? Do you think this means defenses really roll coverage towards LaMelo and sag off and help a lot? What do you think happens ultimately with the loss of Bridges? Because he is a player offensively that can keep defenses a little bit more honest than whoever is going to replace him, Grant Williams, Saloon, Cody Martin, whoever here.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely could see LaMelo's usage be really, really big, and then can Brandon Miller's minutes really start to come up after being held in check? Maybe they're okay, you're good. We saw a lot of handling from Brandon Miller in the preseason, especially late in the preseason, even including the games LaMelo did play. But yeah, and should note too, I'm always paying attention to Indy's helping off stuff. They were not at all, and now it's starting to come back. Now we're starting to see that pretty big gap from rim frequency and 3-point frequency. So it could be kind of a LaMelo scoring game for sure.
Yep. Okay, let's go to New Orleans in Orlando. On the New Orleans side, the injury report remains devastating. Zion Williamson is questionable here with left hamstring tightness. DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy, CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Jordan Hawkins, Karlo Makovic all out. So we add Jordan Hawkins out with the lower back tightness. We have Zion questionable here. We saw devastating for us. Jose Alvarado could not miss from 3 last game, literally 7 for 7. Kept the starters out there enough for us to eat a couple L's from Donovan Mitchell and Zion Williamson in late game situations. They still were on the verge of getting blown out in this game, despite shooting 50% from 3, despite Alvarado playing as well as he was, and getting the line a bunch. So, they shot 90% from the line in this game. And they still almost got worked at home. Obviously, they were playing the Cavs, very, very tough opponent here. They go into Orlando. Orlando's really struggling a lot here. But what's your expectation on Zion with this injury situation? Hamstring, I think, is a different designation than before. It was quad before. So thigh. So, yeah, opposite side. So what are your thoughts here on Zion's availability and how the Pelicans stack up tonight?
Yeah, a lot to talk about with Zion here. As you noted, it was first called over the weekend. It was first called hamstring, and then it was called thigh, and now we're back to hamstring again. So clearly, this is just the same thing, just being listed differently. We saw him go to the locker room. We had an under on him. Okay, we got this one. Now we're sweating this Jordan Hawkins thing. He comes back. He plays 19 and a half second half minutes. They did not take this dude out, and he buried us, one of our toughest L's of the season in the prop streets there. But he looked fantastic, not a back-to-back. I mean, if you're going to play this guy that many minutes in the second half with pretty short rest, obviously, like that's, I don't know. It's ballsy. I'll put it that way. So, I think we landed at 33 minutes just because he played so much there. It could certainly be light. You have, I think, massive injury aggravation risk here. So it'll be tough to, talk about this against a Magic team that's been struggling a little bit. But yeah, so really dicey. We're going to talk a lot about aggravation stuff a lot today. Zion, one of the most likely to. So that means without Hawkins now, so you're losing a main guard there. So that's going to probably get Jalen Noel in the rotation. And then also worth noting, there were some weird rotations late in this game. You see Yves Missi only 19 minutes. That's not foul trouble. They went away from him. They went Javonte Green as like their center. Pretty good bit down the stretch in this game. That was an interesting little wrinkle there. You mentioned the Alvarado flame throwing. And then the other thing, Brandon Boston, 38 minutes. We juiced him up. I think we landed at 34.5. They just have no wings on this team. So Brandon Boston should be starting again. Brandon Ingram also played a ton this game. I think Missi comes back to a little bit to life. I think they were trying to get a little cute against the Cavs. And then Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, a little bit of a push and pull with him and Yves Missi. Mentioned Javonte Green already in there. So, yeah, it's getting pretty tight here. Orlando's been terrible, but, man, just betting against the Pelicans has been just a print fest. Against the spread, they're like under 9 points off the spread, worse than the NBA. So if you've been betting against the Pelicans, you've probably got some money.
I have a little bit of a theory on Missi that I need to look into a little bit more, but I think one of the challenges of Missi playing with Zion is just in general the floor spacing, and Missi is in the lane that Zion needs cleared to be able to be his most effective self. And so in this game, you can see those two combined for 48 minutes. I haven't looked at sub patterns here. Obviously, they started the game together, but I wonder if Zion's availability limits Missi's ceiling a little bit, just because until they get to the point where Missi can set screens for Zion and then roll and actually finish at the rim instead of like catching and bringing the ball down, their offense needs Zion to have that space. And that's why Javonte Green makes sense as a center to like just clear out to allow Zion to operate in the paint. And Zion was going at Mobley, he was going at Jared Allen. It didn't matter. I mean, those guys are premier defenders. So it's just give me the space, get the hell out of the way, and like let me go to the rim. And that's one thing that I'll be watching for kind of going forward on Missi is just like, how are they using him? Are they going to find ways to actually allow, because right now the offense is so Zion, it needs to be so Zion dominant because it's just him and Ingram that I think like it might be an issue for Missi. Are things just falling?
Right over there.
What is happening? Is there an earthquake in New York? Are things like falling behind me? All right. Let's move on to Orlando. No Wendell Carter Jr., no Paolo Banchero here. So same situation. We saw Goga Batadze start last game, play effectively again in a starting role. What are your expectations for the Magic tonight?
Yeah, should see the same starters here. And as you mentioned, Goga Batadze, you see 30 minutes. It's a little misleading. He played 18 first half minutes. He was going for a ton. They ran in some fouls in the third quarter to cut him down. So the Goga Sharks, as Chris will know, could be slimming for a feeding frenzy here. So yeah, expecting Goga to start and get a pretty good amount of minutes. Pelicans interior defense is a disaster, so pretty good spot for Goga here. Franz Wagner finally over the illness. We just took over on him as well, so feel pretty good about his minutes being pretty strong. Handling rules pretty good. Jalen Suggs also playing a ton. We saw Kentavious Caldwell-Pope play a ton. I mean, they can't play Jonathan Isaac a ton. They don't really want to play Mo Wagner, which they didn't in the first half. They didn't run Goga and Mo together. Anthony Black, they're topping out him. They don't want to play Jet Howard yet. So this is getting pretty tight. So as I mentioned, the matchup's pretty good. The Pelicans' interior defense is really bad for a team that likes to punish interior scoring, even without Paolo. So this could be a pretty good get-right spot for the Magic overall. And, haven't done it yet because the Magic have looked so bad. But dabbling in betting and hashtag our magic there. But yeah, should mostly expect this rotation to be run back for the most part.
Yeah, I think from their perspective, they've got to get as many wins as they can while Paolo is out. Now, the schedule's been brutal, right? You can see in that graphic there, they're 1-6 on the road. They've played 7 road games and 2 home games to start the season. So just a brutal schedule. Now they get New Orleans at home, Washington at home, Charlotte at home, Indiana at home, Philadelphia at home. This is time to get right and get some of these wins kind of back on the right side in the absence of Paolo. So I think they have a back-to-back next Tuesday and Wednesday. Other than that, I think you're going to see pretty elevated minutes from the starters, just because I think they're looking at this like any game that is winnable, we got to try to win it in the absence of Paolo, and then once we have Paolo back, we can scale back, and lean on our depth a little bit more. Paolo and Wendell, I should say. Right now, though, I think it's like all hands on deck. All right, let's go to Brooklyn and Boston. Brooklyn side, no Day'Ron Sharpe, no Trendon Watford. No Jalen Martin, no Bojan Bogdanovic or Derek Whitehead. Noah Clowney is questionable with an illness. He missed last game. Matchup here with Boston, not great. We are back to having Claxton and Simmons both available. So who knows who's going to start? This would seem to be a Ben Simmons spot, just given the matchup with Boston and all the switchability in the big wing scorers. But Claxton started last game, got up to 27. So what are your thoughts here on who we see start tonight?
Yeah, I think it's time to get Claxton in there. There was comments from Jordi Fernandez prior to, I think it was Sunday night. He said that, we want to get Claxton through this back-to-back, and then we'll talk about starting him. They got him through a back-to-back. I think he starts. I don't think that they're going to want to put him and Ben Simmons together. I think they were minus 21 net rating together last year in their minutes. So I think Ben's off the bench. Dennis Schroeder's been playing too well from an offensive perspective and a defensive perspective. As just honestly one of the best on-ball defense teams in the NBA, which sounds insane. They're second in pick-and-roll handler points against behind OKC. So a lot of doubling, a lot of two-on-the-ball stuff that's been making them tougher here against ball handlers overall. So, yeah, I'm expecting the starting lineup to be Dennis Schroeder, Nick Claxton, the Cams, and Dorian Finney-Smith, who's helping his trade value, and then Ben off the bench, probably kicking out Keon Johnson for the most part, Shake as well. Zaire Williams. We'll see if Noah Clowney, who has an illness tag, he had the hip thing over the weekend that cost him a game. So we'll see. Definitely, if he didn't play, that could add some depth and make it a little bit easier too. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Ben's coming off the bench.
All right. Boston side, no Jaylen Brown. Luke Cornett is doubtful. Still, obviously, no Kristaps Porzingis. They listed Drew Peterson as available, maybe possibly notable there. What are your notes on what we see from Boston tonight?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Drew Peterson was listed out earlier today and then got flipped to available. We talked about this a lot in our Slack channel. You and I are more on the same page here. Neemias Queta was fantastic. Incredible rolls to the basket, kind of kept them in this game, or even helped them, get the win, or get the lead in this game. But that said, you don't have Cornette, you don't have Kristaps. Do you want to play Xavier Tillman that much? Early signs are no, they do not. So you and I think that there's a chance that they flip this starting lineup and just to spread their minutes out a little easier, start Horford at the center, bring back that Sam Hauser lineup we always were seeing, and then cover your minutes that way. So we've got a little bit of a hedge there, but then again, Kate has been fantastic. This could be all a bunch of BS, and that will be a sign they're going to play him a ton here. So other than that, because losing Luke Cornett has been pretty good, could just tighten things up around the center spot. So yeah, possible lineup change. I talked about this last time and was wrong. Going that way again here. I think we could get a starting lineup change.
Yeah, and the other thing about it, right, is with Queta in there, if Claxton is the starter for Brooklyn, that's a pretty comfortable spot for Claxton, right? If Horford's in there, then Claxton has to be out on the perimeter, away from the basket, protecting the basket, and that's like a less comfortable spot. And then in the second unit, Queta can, be going up against like Ben Simmons essentially at the center spot. And that's not that bad of a spot for Queta to be in. So I think it kind of makes sense. We'll see. Queta obviously played great in this one. But it also becomes a situation where the minutes just get much, much easier to, like a rotation becomes much easier to see if it's Horford as the starting center, Queta as the backup center, because then Xavier Tillman is basically like a backup 4. If Xavier Tillman's a backup 5, then you got to get Kata and Horford. They got to play a bunch of minutes. I mean, they played 58 combined in this one. That was with Kornet. And there were times in this game where Kornet was the sole center and Horford or Kata weren't on the floor. I can't imagine that that's going to happen much in this game. Maybe it will with Ben Simmons as like the backup center. Maybe they'll go to 5, 5 smaller guys with Tatum at center and stuff like that. But that's why I'm thinking maybe Sam Hauser gets in the starting lineup and we see just a different approach here. Okay, let's go. And we know also, you had mentioned the quote that Missoula was talking about wanting to play different combinations, right? And like wanting to test stuff. So that might be part of this as well. Okay. Golden State and Cleveland, the game of the night from my perspective. Unfortunately, we've got questionable tags on 3 key Golden State players, D'Anthony Melton, Brandon Podziemski, and Draymond Green. Podziemski is the illness tag. He missed last game. D'Anthony Melton, the right low back strain. He's missed last few games. And then Dre, right knee contusion. This defense has been incredible to start the season. I contend that like most of that credit goes to Draymond Green. I think they've got a lot of guys who are competing really well, but Dre is just so freaking good still at this age. So if he's unable to go, I would think it would have a meaningful impact on their defense. But what are your notes here on the Q tags for the Warriors?
Yeah, I'm with you. Didn't have any indication prior to this on Dre. Obviously, the Melton stuff's easy, right? Back injury, hurt him last year. He's out, yada, yada. But he's been going through 3-on-3 for a little bit. So he's trending in the right direction based on the practice reporting. So he could be back. And then Pods, as you mentioned, illness tag on Monday, and then got pulled out on Monday, and then illness Q tag, missed Wednesday, and then now probably back. We'll see. So keep an eye on all that stuff. But I think, and I'm not confident who starts. Moody's probably. I don't know. Like I think I can't be any certain on anything. It could be Melton if he's back. It could be. I think they like Buddy Hield at the bench. They could go back to GP2 again. So don't really have any confidence there. Obviously, if Draymond's out, I feel pretty confident it will be Jonathan Kuminga starting for him. Overall, they could still trace Jackson Davis with the way Looney played down the stretch. I wouldn't be like totally shocked if they flipped that. But Trace has been fine in the first unit, so I don't think they get too cute. But the other note, Steph's minutes, no minutes limit, gets up to 34. Obviously played really well in this game. So he's kind of back to full. We'll see if the next question is if all these guys are in, is he going 12? Is he going 13? Yeah. Steve Kerr. There was the comment after the first game. We were like, oh my God, he really went 12 in the opener. He joked after the game he wished he would have went 13 to get Lindy in there. So really tough team to project. We've got like only Steph like comfortably in minutes range. Even like getting Wiggins to like 26, 27 is like hard to do. But he might be safe. We might be light Wiggins because he's played pretty well for the most part.
I have one disagreement with you. Do you know where it's going to be?
You think Kuminga's not?
If Draymond's out?
Yeah. Do you think it's Kyle Anderson?
I think it's Kyle Anderson.
Yeah,
I think Kyle Anderson starts. I think a lot of the stuff that they're able to do offensively with Steph in terms of moving off screens and stuff is kind of dependent on an anchor that can pass the ball and move the ball around. And I think Kyle Anderson can be that. And then the second unit, Looney can still do that stuff with Buddy Hield. So I think separating Looney and Kyle Anderson like makes sense from that perspective, because you don't need that when you have Dre playing all those minutes, but you need sort of a lever for this offense to work, and it's a big that can pass. So I think it would be Kyle Anderson in that situation. I think they like Kuminga and Hield off the bench. I think they just view that as like, when Steph's on the court, we can have a bunch of defenders out there that don't take up possessions because it doesn't matter. When Steph's off the court, we need Hield and Kuminga to be the center point of an offense. I think that's the way that they're looking at things right now. All right. On the Cavs side of things, Dean Wade questionable here with the illness tag, missed the last couple games. Sam Merrill questionable, left ankle soreness, still without Max Strus. What are your notes on the Cavs?
Yeah, we did get a shoot around for Dean Wade, missed the last couple for illness, so should be back. Does he start though? I don't know. I think that they might just bring him off the bench here. Dean Wade's done a pretty good job on a lot of like drive downhill guards like Cade and others. I don't know if you want to do that. I don't know if you want Garland or Mitchell chasing stuff around. So I kind of think they might mix this up and go with Okoro just to get Dean Wade back in the rhythm, and also partly for matchup. So something I'm just watching. I'm not confident in that, obviously. And then, And I think Okoro's minutes could still come up, and at the expense of like George Niang, a little bit of Sam Merrill coming off an injury overall, and then big game as you mentioned. Do we finally get more minutes out of these guys? We haven't seen really anyone get spiked up, especially Donovan Mitchell. So pretty interesting spot here. Should note too, we talked a lot about this on the pod. The Warriors are really trapping. They're second in putting two on the ball and pick and roll handler stuff. So we normally would want to probably target the perimeter players because the Warriors' interior defense has been good. It's a little tricky. So it's kind of tough to kind of parse through who you want to attack. And you may just not want to because I think the Warriors' defense is pretty legit.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on Okoro, more likely to start over Wade, even if Wade's available here. I think also like Wade as a primary defender on Kuminga in the second unit makes all the sense in the world. If Kuminga's in the second unit, maybe that changes. If Kuminga was in the first unit, maybe that would change priorities, but I think the priority would be Steph at all times. So I think Okoro is a better fit there. I do think the Warriors defense is going to just ignore Isaac Okoro. So I think there's going to be a lot of help off of Isaac Okoro, and he's going to have to prove that he can knock down some shots early in the game. Otherwise, I think they're just going to leave him, and we'll see if it's like the playoff Okoro that gets played off the floor really, really quickly. But I think that's the way that the Warriors are going to kind of approach things. So my guess is within the first few minutes of this game, you're getting an Isaac Okoro 3-ball attempt that we'll see that will determine a lot in terms of his playing time going forward. All right. Let's go to Milwaukee and the Knicks. On the Milwaukee side of things, Giannis Antetokounmpo probable here on the back end of a back-to-back for them. They're without A.J. Johnson, Chris Livingston, Chris Middleton, and then they got a questionable tag on Gary Trent Jr. We were skeptical of Doc's quotes after the game where he said Gary Trent Jr. didn't play in the second half because of a back issue. We thought it was like, yeah, it's more of a performance thing. You're not wanting to play Gary Trent Jr. But here he is. He's listed questionable with the back spasms. We saw Andre Jackson Jr. play really effectively last night, disruptive defensively, brought some of that athleticism that they need in that first unit, plus 19 in the minutes that he was on the floor. What are your expectations on Gary Trent Jr. Tonight? And if he's unable to go, it looks like AJ Green just kind of slides into that role.
Yeah. So Doc had mentioned that like he was watching Gary Trent run. He's like, oh yeah, I'm not a doctor, but he looked like he was not running right. Pulled him out, kept him out of the game. So I'm buying what he's saying. Brody's having a nightmare over there. So I'm buying it. I think that they're obviously going to start Andre Jackson. That news came out before Chris Haynes had noted that they were going to start him. Thought he played pretty well. So it should be pretty secure. That starting lineup should remain the same. Giannis Antetokounmpo returning from a one-game absence. Light minutes in the first half because he picked up 3 fouls. But after the game, Doc Rivers said that he's had he liked that he only played 30 minutes. So we talked about this yesterday. Like, okay, are you going to manage him? It sounds like he's going to be pretty full, just based on the optimism that Doc had after Giannis. So I think I think he's going to be full, to put it that way. Other than that, Dame was great. Don't have too much to add. The other note here, DeLon Wright didn't play. We saw this kind of get cut down before. As I mentioned, it sounds like Doc has been managing him. So it sounds like AJ Green kind of took his minutes away as well on top of Gary Trent. So kind of shifting into these younger players in Andre Jackson and AJ Green. I'm going to have to wake Brody up from his nightmare real quick.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where Giannis's minutes ultimately settle in. We know one of the tendencies we've seen from Doc Rivers since he came over to Milwaukee is those kind of elevated minutes for Giannis. He also picked up his 5th foul in the third quarter in this game. So, he was kind of battling foul trouble throughout the game. But when you say full on Giannis, you're talking 34, 35 in terms of that range, yes. Not the old Giannis full, which was like 32, 33.
The Bud Giannis, yeah.
Yep. Okay. New York side of things, still no Precious Achiuwa or Mitchell Robinson or Kevin McCullough Jr. Campaign listed questionable here with that left hamstring strain. He's missed the last couple of games. What are your notes on Campaign's availability tonight?
Yeah, he's been getting ruled out pretty quick. Hamstring strain, not surprising he would miss more time. So expecting him to maybe not even play. Like, he hasn't really earned any minutes anyways. So, pretty low expectations for him. Sorry, pulling up this box score, which could – get Kolek in there. We've seen him kind of play a little bit here and there. So pretty straightforward. Could just be, again, just so tight rotations here. Take the, Trae Young sending the Knicks fans home unhappy. Take your ass home. Great line there. But, it should be pretty tight. And again, they probably want to get. The Knicks have been sputtering 3-4. Probably should have won this game with a shorthanded Hawks team. So probably going to see a pretty tight rotation from Tibbs.
Yep. All right, let's go to Phoenix and Dallas. On the Phoenix side, Bradley Beal listed probable here. Ryan Dunn listed doubtful with a left ankle sprain. How does Dunn's absence impact the Suns tonight?
Yeah, this can go a couple ways. If they wanted to add someone in there, it's between, I think, really three guys. I think looking at the minutes so far, you would be inclined to think Monte Morris, but just a big role difference for how Monte Morris would fill. Do you really want to have in where you need the matchup? Like it'd be really nice to have Ryan Dunn here. So a part of me thinks that like Josh Okogie could come in there. Now, obviously, Okogie's not going to play like 15 minutes, but just to give you a little bit of just help on Beal, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, I should mention too. Those guys will be picking up minutes. So it could be, and then it could also be tight. I could also see them just like running, 9-man in a game they probably want to get. And then also just like the minutes have been so tight for these guys too. So yeah, I think that they could just I don't know. We gave Okogie like 5 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in there. And then on the other guy, which the matchup makes no sense, like Bol. I don't think it makes any sense to do Bol in this spot here. So yeah, I think it could be between Monte Morris if they wanted to really ask a lot out of Royce O'Neal and Bradley Beal. But I think adding Okogie to take a little pressure off those guys makes a little bit of sense to add some minutes that are vacated by Dunn being out today.
Yeah, the other note that I'd have here is I think it's much, much more likely that we get closer to that 48 mark on Nurkic and Plumlee together without Ryan Dunn around. Also, with the Dallas absences that they have, no Derek Lively, no PJ Washington, no Maxi Kleber. We'll talk about that in a second, but that means it's basically Gafford at center and then Dwight Powell at center, right? So much easier to play Nurkic and Plumlee for like a full 48 in those scenarios with the way that their injuries are and the way that Dallas's injuries are tonight. Okay, Dallas side of things, no Dante Exum, no Derek Lively, no PJ Washington, all listed out, and then Maxi Kleber listed doubtful with the right hamstring strain. So some progress in terms of the tag for Kleber, but likely won't see him tonight. What are your expectations on what that means for Dallas?
Yeah, it should be the same situation here. Najee Marshall should play a pretty good bit. They're going to need him. He's going to be on the Kevin Durant assignment. And then we'll see. Talked about this on the pod. They've been running a lot of Kevin Durant pick and roll stuff. So do they matchup hunt and try to bring Luka or Kyrie or Clay into the actions? We've talked about them, hunting Tyler Hero a bunch. So I think that's something to watch for how they cover. As you mentioned, this game could play big, as you noted. It could play small. I mean, that would mean Royce O'Neal plays a ton on the other side, but then it could mean Najee plays like mid to upper 30s. We did see them run like a Najee Marshall and Luka Doncic small ball lineup a couple games ago. Would that be back on the table here overall? But yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie and then Omax Prosper was the guy who really stepped up. Quentin Grimes just can't get minutes, man. It's kind of stunning that Quentin Grimes can't find minutes after a good preseason overall. But yeah, then other note, Luka Doncic starting to make his layups again. I've been kind of tracking that. But yeah, it should be the same starting lineup. Omax in there, Spencer Dinwiddie in there, Dwight Powell in there for sure. I think I said Omax already, and then Grimes still in there, and then Jaden Hardy also snuck in there. So they've got like okay depth, but I think this game's gonna. If you had to like pick a game where you over under 38 minutes on guys, probably picking this one for like the guys with the most 38-minute games.
All right, Houston and Oklahoma City on the Houston side. Cam Whitmore listed out, G League assignment. Steven Adams listed questionable right knee injury recovery. What are your notes here on the Rockets?
Yeah, not good. I've got to be better at finding box scores here. So yeah, the Cam Whitmore thing's terrible. We saw him kind of go away. We talked about this happening when they're upping Tari Easton's minutes. They're getting Steven Adams back in the mix, and they want to play Reed Shepherd a little bit. And Amen Thompson has to play more minutes. All this is just pushing Cam Whitmore down and now out. How many points per game is Cam Whitmore going to score in the G League? Like 50?
I would assume it's 35 plus.
Yeah, I wonder if there's it's got to be in the 40s, man. Like a friendly bet that he scores 40 per game in the G League. Okay. This matchup sucks. We know that. OKC's on-ball defense, talk about it every time. Their first and pick and roll stuff, first and pick and roll man stuff. It's going to be really hard to score. So horrendous matchup for Jalen Green, horrendous matchup for Fred VanVleet. This has to be Şengün kind of stealing the show. And then, Amen Thompson has to play great. The pace has to be really strong. Rockets play really slow. So very little confidence. OKC's defense is so legit. So kind of want no parts of this unless I'm going to play the Şengün game. We know centers have been able to put up good lines against Chet and the OKC interior defense.
Oklahoma City side, the injury report's the same as we've seen all season. No Hartenstein, no Jalen Williams, no Kenrich Williams. What are your notes on the Thunder tonight? You finally did hit a Thunder starter last game out.
Yeah, I did. I thought I wasn't. It got incorrectly listed, and I was upset about. Thought I was going to go 0-8, but yeah, apparently it's bad. I get the Thunder started right, and then lose a game, so it's my fault. But I think Kaysen, right? Like you need a second on-ball defender to guard the two-man actions they're running with Fred VanVleet and Jalen. So I would think it would be Kaysen Wallace. I actually feel pretty good about that for the first time like ever, which means I'm clearly going to be wrong. But yeah, not too much to add. I'll just say that the Rockets are just taking away catch and shoot stuff while the Thunder are giving it up. Second most catch and shoot possessions allowed to the fewest on Houston. So different styles, but good defense. Houston's defense has been awesome. I think they're 5th on defense and again really playing slow as well. So pretty nasty game environment with two good defenses out there.
All right, Washington and Memphis on the Washington side of things. No Kyle Kuzma, no Malcolm Brogdon, no Sadiq Bey, no Justin Champagnie or Tristan Vukovic as G Leaguers, and then a questionable tag on Marvin Bagley for a non-COVID illness. What are your notes here on the Wizards?
First of all, they've been off for a bit. Been off since Monday. And secondly, yeah, they should be pretty much running the situation back. Keyshawn George was fantastic. So expecting him to be get on there. Expecting him to play a pretty good bit. Same starting lineup. Jordan Poole's been awesome. I think he's at like 4.0 stocks per game. He's been really racking up the defensive stats. Matchup's going to be the John Morant stuff, which we'll talk about. It goes from like great matchup to Poole. Like I was writing it before the injury report, and I was like, "Oh, Jaw's out." That means Scottie Pippen's on him now. Scotty's been really good, so tough matchup for him. Bilal Coulibaly's obviously playing a ton. Shot the ball poorly for once, and then Bub's playing a ton. Keyshawn's playing it pretty tight. I mean, look at this rotation. Airtight up top. Sarr still not getting a bunch, but Kispert, Joval, and that's it. So they ran this pretty tight. I think that's going to continue. They want to play these guys a pretty good bit. And this is like the opposite of the game I just talked about with Houston and Thunder. You got a team that plays insanely fast and a team on the other side, the Grizzlies, they're first in transition stuff. So this is just really, a lot of iffy players, but you could get a huge payoff in an up-tempo style with two bad defenses. The Wizards are terrible. The Grizzlies defense has been pretty bad. Jaren Jackson coming back has helped a little, but this is one of the best bad basketball games of the night with so many players that most people don't know about.
In the Bagley Q tag, do you think we see him tonight? Do you think if he is available to go, he cuts into this very, very tight rotation at all?
Maybe. I mean, they're pretty comfortable starting Alex Sarr, so I wouldn't. I haven't done their minutes yet, but I would expect it to be basically the same. Just like okay. We'll give him like 7 or 8.
Okay, so you think it would be really de minimis? I was thinking that you might get him up to like 12 to 14, and then essentially like caps a little bit of the ceiling of some of these guys. But maybe they'll just keep running these guys 40 a night, basically. Like that's the pacing that they've been. Which I know they want to play the young guys, but that will probably have some wear and tear at times. I know they've been off for a while. Okay, Memphis side, no Desmond Bane, no Juju Jackson, no John Morant, no Marcus Smart, no Vince Williams, although he was sent to the G League, so we might be seeing Vince Williams within the next week or two. No Cam Spencer. John Conchard, questionable. So we have one questionable tag, a bunch of out tags. The Grizzlies remain very beaten up. What are your expectations here on what we see from Memphis tonight?
Yeah, it should be Scottie Pippen, as I mentioned. So I'd expect him to start in John Morant's place. Jalen Wells has been really good. He's just kind of separated a bit of a gap. I got the wrong box up. My bad. Pulled up the Monday one. So yeah, he should be. So it should be Jalen Wells at the 2 spot. Santi Aldama, I'll talk about him in a second, at the 3. Jaren Jackson, and then should still be Zach Edey. Zach Edey lost some closing minutes again. Not surprising. And then, as I mentioned, Luke Kennard did come back. So yeah, it should be. I mean, Sky's going to play a lot here. There's just no handling unless they bring in Yuki Kamamura. I highly doubt they do. And as a matter of fact, what they did without Ja, they actually ran like Santi Aldama as like a point guard. Like he was bringing the ball up after makes. So that's how down bad they are. So you can get a lot of minutes out of Scottie Pippen as well. Jake LaRavie has run some ball handling stuff too. You see the 8 assists on the screen. So A lot of these guys could really benefit, taking John Morant out of this situation. And then the other thing too that was a big trend last year, Jaren Jackson ball handling, like he was running so many pick and rolls down the stretch last year. I think that'll be a big part of the offense in a matchup we really want to attack. So yeah, this could be just like someone on this Grizzlies team is like going to pop off in a big way. Maybe 2 or 3 guys, really good matchup to attack for DFS.
All right, let's go to the Miami and Denver game. Miami listed Tyler Hero available, lower back contusion. Jaime Jaquez Jr. listed as questionable with return to competition reconditioning, which after the illness, gastroenteritis listing, makes you appreciate what Jaime's been through the last couple of days, because a return to competition reconditioning I wasn't prepared for, but it is a game in altitude. We should note as well here. Kevin Love out, same tag as Jaime there. So Jaime is questionable. He was at shoot around this morning. What are your expectations? Do you think we see him tonight back in altitude against Denver?
I think so, but don't have a take, the stomach illness thing. Hope he wasn't drinking the water as we joked about. But yeah, so don't have a great read there. I think I think it's trending like he's in. I'll say that. But as you noted, you talked about this and kind of nailed it. Haywood Highsmith really made a big impact in this game. And how dead is Jovic? He hasn't played well at all. We saw him get cut down when he shouldn't have, and now he gets cut down when he should have. As the way they kind of flipped the matchups. We talked about putting Bam on Kevin Durant, and then they put Jovic on Nurk, and it just didn't work. So probably going to give him 1 more, 2 more, because it's just hard to fit him. If you're not going to start him, where are you going to play him? So a little early to cut bait. So I think Jovic still starts. Jaime Jaquez, Kim coming in there. You would think that's going to cut into Alec Burks. They really like Pele Larson, so I think Burks would kind of be at most at risk. And then I think they got to play Highsmith here. He's just been playing pretty well when they ask him to play. Yeah, that's mostly where we're at here. Just keep an eye on Jovic. I definitely think we'll be back to watching the Miami Heat social, tweeting out their starting lineups. We're back to that point right now.
Yeah, my first instinct was this is not without Jamal Murray, who's questionable, so I shouldn't say without Jamal Murray, but this is not as big of a pressure spot on Haywood Highsmith, like needing his defense. But then the more I thought about it, Michael Porter Jr. kind of coming off screens, that's kind of a Haywood Highsmith situation in terms of trying to defend that. And the other option that they'd have to try to throw at that would be Jimmy, probably, because Jovic I don't think is a good option for that. So it might be another Highsmith game. I don't think he's going to start. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to start. And the challenge with Highsmith is, even if you get the minutes right, you often don't get the production right. I know in this game he scores 19, he grabs 7 boards. It's just that's unusual for Haywood Highsmith in terms of the output there. But let's go to the Nuggets side of things. Jamal Murray questionable, concussion protocol. They're still without Aaron Gordon, who's out with the right calf strain. If Jamal Murray returns, does that send Russell Westbrook back to the bench, or do they mess around with like Peyton Watson to the bench? It would seem to me like Westbrook would be kind of clearly back to the bench here, but what are your thoughts on the Nuggets?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We saw him lose a little bit of minutes down the stretch, right? He was playing great, and they ran Julian Strawther with the starters for a pretty important pocket there to just run the offense through Jokic, which, good God, man. Jokic without Jamal Murray, 118 touches, 63 front court touches, is like lapping the field than anyone in those touch categories. I think like 14 post-ups, just outrageous roll from Jokic. Incredible game, 20, 16 times, just nuts. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that he would be back to the bench. I think Peyton Watson has done more than enough. I mean, he had the biggest defensive play of the game, like blocks SGA at the rim. That's the biggest play of the game. So yeah, I think Peyton Watson's done enough. A lot of talk from Malone really since he's come out there. So Peyton Watson, it's all about the peaks and valleys. He's peaking. So I feel pretty good about Peyton Watson continuing to start while Aaron Gordon's out. Should mention Jamal Murray taking on contact. He was kind of early, kind of getting over the protocol here. So it was like 5 to 7 days was what Michael Malone was expecting. So we're right there at like 7th day. So I think I'm leaning Murray's in. There's really nothing to think he's not going to be. Certainly tricky with concussion protocol. May have to get one more clear, yada yada. But it looks like Murray will be in there. Probably a little bit of a limit. But yeah, definitely something to watch. But I think he's in.
Yeah, incredible win by this team. And maybe, one of the challenges for the Nuggets last year was like gaining trust on these younger players and having to rely on them. And they might be forced into this with the absence of Aaron Gordon, with the absence of Jamal Murray. To this point, maybe we'll continue to see kind of growth on the Nuggets young players and trust from Michael Malone on them. That would be important. Okay, Portland and Minnesota. On the Portland side of things, Matisse Thybulle listed out. No other meaningful listings here, just the G Leaguers out. So it looks like we have a fairly healthy Portland situation. The rotation remains a little bit tricky. Delano Banton makes a second quarter appearance yesterday instead of the fourth quarter appearances that we've seen. Doesn't play as well and as effective yesterday. They end up getting kind of run out in the second half here. We still saw like big time starters minutes. So it ended up being like Ban and Sharp's return kind of like impacted Denny Avdia a little bit, but not as like Scoot a little bit, but not as much the starters, which was a little bit surprising there. What are your notes on expectations for Portland here? One of the teams that's on a back-to-back tonight.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Shaedon Sharp returned. Looked pretty good, pretty comfortable. Got to his spots, rising up. He looked like Shaedon Sharp. So maybe the minutes come up a little bit. I kind of doubt it. I think they kind of want to get him through the back-to-back first. But this has been a pretty common theme. We talked a lot about this. A lot of shoulder injuries, right? Like Kevin Huerter, RJ Barrett, Shaedon Sharp, others. And they usually get it and then get it and go. Like they're pretty quick up to speed here. So he could be up more. Tough projection. I haven't got I was just about to get their minutes before I hopped on here. But yeah, as you mentioned, the guy who's been hurt the most, you would think right now it'd be Toumani Camara. It is not. Toumani Camara is playing really well for them. They need point of attack defense. He's been really valuable. He's been guarding some really, really high-end players. They, kind of played some small ball matchups on Wemby again. That's been a pretty common trend. Expecting the same starters. We'll see if Sharp's minutes come up. And then, as you mentioned, like Denny Avdia is the one getting hurt the most here.
Yeah.
He can't hit minute ceilings anymore. It's been kind of crazy after the way he played last year. And then, Klingon continues to play behind DeAndre Ayton, all that good stuff. So, yeah, I think it's going to be mostly a run-it-back situation. Certainly think Delano Banton has done more than enough to kind of earn minutes again, despite not having it yesterday.
Minnesota side of this game, they are also on a back-to-back. So two of the teams that played last night playing each other in a back-to-back here. Nothing on the injury report of note. And Tim Connolly, the Timberwolves general manager, noted that in the offseason that they were going to try to manage Mike Conley's games expectation down a little bit. But he also had a quote saying that early in the season, they're not as concerned about back-to-backs. They end up pulling away here big in the fourth quarter. I mean, this game was very close going into the fourth quarter, then a huge fourth quarter effort from Anthony Edwards and folks here. Conley gets up to 26 minutes in this one. What are your notes or expectations on the Timberwolves tonight?
Yeah, it should be mostly the same situation. I could see their rotation adding a little bit more depth in a back-to-back when you're pretty heavy favored. And to your point, yeah, Conley's got a wrist injury as well. We were waiting for the Minnesota Timberwolves injury report to come out just so we didn't get any surprises. And it was clean, and we fired off on a Mike Conley under. Feel pretty good about him being like low 20s minutes here as they're going to try to manage him. So, yeah, pretty like Conley despite playing freaking awesome yesterday. Really nice win there. But, yeah, other than that, mostly the same situation. And last thing I'll add, the Blazers defense has been really good. I don't know what it was after yesterday, but they've been like top 5 half-court defense. They've been really, really surprisingly pretty good. So not as great of an environment as you might think. And the Wolves are playing really slow.
Yep. All right, Clippers and Sacramento. Clippers side, no Kawhi Leonard, no Mo Bamba. Pretty much the same stuff we've seen from the Clippers here. Any notes on LAC?
Nope. Don't really have too much to say. I'm really these big days with all the box scores. It's hard to find the box scores to pull up. I've had it with these 13, 15 gamers. Not much to say. Interesting matchup note that I wanted to share was we talked about the Warriors putting 2 on the ball more. You know who else is? The Kings. They've kind of shifted to like a Bullsy in defense where they're giving a lot of catch and shoot stuff. Because they're putting 2 on the ball more. We'll see if that continues or if it was just like something to try out. And then that could be a pretty big spot for Zoo. First in paint touches, being fed like crazy. Could Norm get some catch and shoot stuff as well here? But yeah, rotation's pretty static for the most part. It's just we don't know if Chris Dunn cuts into Terrence Mann enough or Amir Coffey cuts into Derek Jones. It's just really tough to peg these wing minutes overall. But we know Norm, Harden, and Zoo are going to just dominate minutes and should get pretty good shot volume here.
Yep. Kings side, nothing injury wise really to go through. Devin Carter and Orlando Robinson remain out. Any notes you have on the Kings?
No, just Mike Brown has gone full Tibbs, playing these guys a ton. Alex Len was a pretty big impact in this game. Got the defensive player of the game against the Raptors. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Herder returned from illness in 24 minutes. Do you think that impacted the lighter minutes there for Herder?
A little bit. I think that's just kind of where they're going. Mid-20s minutes overall, so he should be fine. But yeah, Keegan's been great. 22 and 12, hitting the bat, hit 7 offensive rebounds for Keegan. Was called, quote, a monster by Mike Brown after the game. So yeah, it should be pretty stable here for the most part. I don't think there's too much to add.
Yeah, the thing that I would note is just these last 2 games with when Herder missed and then Herder playing a little bit more limited minutes. It seems like it's opened the door for Keon Ellis again, who was really effective for them late in the season, kind of a plus-minus box king because of his defensive capabilities. And that's the one I'm interested in seeing if that kind of continues. If Keon Ellis, who coming into the season, we thought he was going to be the starting 2 guard, then Herder miraculous recovery at the end of the preseason is starting playing full minutes, and Keon Ellis goes to DNP CD. Now he's kind of back in Mike Brown's favor. So that's the thing that I'm kind of monitoring, because if Keon Ellis does make an impression, it's not only at the expense of Kevin Herter, it could be at the expense of Malik Monk as well, which you saw there in just 21 minutes there. Okay. Philadelphia and the Lakers, last game to talk through on this one. Philadelphia side, Joel Embiid remains out, league suspension. Tyrese Maxey remains outright hamstring strained. No other significant listings here. Paul George, only 24 minutes in his return to the Los Angeles against the Clippers after playing 32 in his first game. Foul trouble influencing some of this. Game outcome influencing some of this as well. What are your expectations for what we see from the 76ers without Tyrese Maxey tonight?
Yeah, not great to lose Tyrese Maxey. Pretty confident that it's going to be Kyle Lowry starting. He's been playing pretty much, the non-Maxey minutes, 7 potential assists per game. He's been distributing the ball, playing pretty good. This whole roster is like full of disappointment, but I think Kyle Lowry's played pretty well and haven't done their minutes yet. I will have that pretty short, but he should play a pretty good bit. There's no handling on this team unless they want to really up Jared McCain, which I don't think they do. Reggie Jackson is expected to come in their rotation according to Keith Pompey, so we'll see how deep they can go, and then how much of a role does Paul George take? Driving it 11 times per game and passing out of drives 7 times. 7 out of 11 out of passing out of drives is a lot. So is he up to speed? And then, as you mentioned, Nick Nurse said after the game, their window right now, which could change 2 days later, was 25 to 30. So first game over that, second game under that. Classic Nurse. But yeah, this is really bad, man. This is they could be what if they don't win that Tuesday game, they could be seriously 1-10. With the beat back, they're on a back-to-back. They get Cleveland on Wednesday. So Embiid will be back on Tuesday. Maxey's out a couple weeks. Yeah. This team is so bad right now, but they need someone to step up. Yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence. Caleb Martin has to shoot more overall, but this team's just so bad.
Yeah, I should note there, I mentioned this on our podcast that is up on this channel as well, but Caleb Martin was grabbing at his right arm after a shot in the third quarter. It looked uncomfortable. He's not listed on the injury report that with Philadelphia. That does not mean anything. This team has repeatedly been the worst defender in the league at managing their injury report during the course of the season. I don't think it's a big deal, but just wanted to highlight, when you see somebody shoot and then immediately grab at their arm, you're like, that's unusual. You don't see that in the NBA often, and then he's not listed, so who knows? Lakers side, Anthony Davis probable with the left plantar fasciitis is the way it's being described now instead of a heel contusion, which was the previous listing on this. Rui Hachimura listed with the illness tag. He's questionable. Jackson Hayes listed probable with left knee soreness. Jackson Hayes plays 30+ minutes, and immediately that was too much. We get the knee soreness tag. So no Christian Wood, no Jared Vanderbilt. What are your expectations on Rui Hachimura's availability? And if we see any sort of limitations on Anthony Davis or the difference in the listing going from heel soreness to plantar fasciitis?
Yeah, let's talk with AD first. This injury is legit. I don't think he had any chance to play, honestly. I was looking at some of the shoot around stuff that he was going through, and it didn't look like he had any chance to play. They kind of talked about game time, yada yada. Feel pretty good he was out. I would be nervous about this probable tag. As I just crapped all over how bad the Sixers are, and you would think I would bet the Lakers, but I want no part of the Lakers if AD is out or limited. My only hesitation, and a massive hesitation. But yeah, Shams Charania pretty much was right when the Lakers injury report came out. Had noted it was going to be a nagging injury. For anyone who follows injury news, plantar fasciitis, perhaps one of the biggest nagging injuries for professional athletes, especially basketball ones, with the jumping and running and stuff. So, yeah, I've got concerns. I would not be firing into Lakers unders until we get AD for sure starting, and you've got aggravation risk as well. Definitely something that you need rest to recover from a plantar fascia injury that's closer to his heel. So. But yeah, should be in there. We'll take the probable tag at its word. Rui Hachimura, as we noted last time, got the early doubtful tag upgraded to questionable, which was weird. The Lakers keep doing that, man. They keep adding their injury report or altering it, which is also this probable tag might change on AD. So being very careful there. Dalton Connect had a jaw injury in this game, but he's good to go. It looks like he was in quote some pain, according to JJ Redick. And then a couple more. D'Angelo Russell, doghoused. Horrible defense in the third quarter. Got put on the pine for good. Called it no attention to detail and not having a level of competitiveness. I forget the exact quoting. Can't find it. Basically he wasn't competing hard enough overall. So we're still. And he also said it wasn't punishment, and he wanted to take him out to compete the game. That's taking away your starting point guard's minutes is kind of a punishment to me. So yeah. And then also the last note, Cam Reddish, 26 minutes. We saw the last game 2 games ago. JJ Redick says that Reddish has earned it, and he did. So I feel our minutes team, I probably need a little more finessing, but I think Reddish is like their 6th, 7th man right now. He's really kind of come up and played pretty good minutes. I know we love to bash Cam Reddish, but there's no denying he's been one of their best players in the second unit. You could he's been maybe more impactful than D'Angelo has been.
It's not a high bar. It's not a high bar in that second unit to clear for sure. There's a great clip of D'Angelo taking a fadeaway 3 and then JJ losing his mind on the bench, literally trying to jam the chair through the floor while he's sitting in it on the bench. JJ's not happy with D'Lo. We'll see if D'Lo responds and gets in line or if D'Lo pouts. Who knows? All right. That will do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. We got in just under an hour. Thank the Lord. I can get some food and get back to the projections work. If you are interested in checking out any of our premium content, you can go to establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for more details on our premium product offerings, both on the DFS side and on the player prop side. If you are interested in the player prop side, please read the FAQ. It's very important to understand what you're getting into. Bets will move quickly. They're difficult to get. That's why we make it a weekly subscription, and that's why it's priced at the level it is. If it doesn't work for you, great. And totally understand. So please read that FAQ. We try to be very straightforward and transparent in what we're marketing here. The DFS side of things, Mike Gallagher's matchups column 3 times a week, live shows 5 times a week, strategy content from myself and Winky, based on either written content from Winky or myself with the Discord NBA office hours. Lots of great stuff that we got going on the DFS package. So you can check us out over at establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA. If you are uninterested in joining us for the premium ride, that's cool too. We do ask for you to support this free channel by subscribing to our YouTube channel. We pushed past 5,000 subscribers last year. Thanks to your help, we'd like to continue to grow this YouTube channel. Helps us monetize this free content for us, which allows us to get paid and keep it free for you. So the other best way to do that is to smash that like button and feed that algorithm. You feed that algorithm, that helps feed our families, allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your DFS lineups, your season-long lineups, and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you next Monday.